thank you very much for having me here. I'm super excited to be here, and I wore my red cowgirl boots just because I was coming to Texas. So to start off, I'm going to kind of show you a lot of the people that have inspired me, things that I look at, things that I reference in my work, and it's going to kind of look like this, but it'll make sense at the end. And there'll be commercial breaks where I show you other artists that I continually look at and have been inspired by, not only just through their work, but through, if I've met them personally. So to start off, I'm one of 4 kids, automatically that tells you I've got issues. But you're one of 4 kids. You learn at a very early age that if you want to keep something safe, you hide it really well from your siblings. I grew up in the country, always out in the woods, and the more I've traveled and the more places I've been, it's a childhood that I have really grown to appreciate. And it's something that I continually go back to and have really started to pull from for the work that I'm making, is that always being outside, always working in the garden or around the house or doing something. And this is my folks' home in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. So on the same property, my parents let me put up a studio building, which I feel very fortunate about. And this is the inside of the studio. Set it up in the fall of 2011, and then I left and started traveling for opportunities that next spring, and really haven't been back since. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that I enjoy. Everything looks great after you spray paint it gold. I also like rusty parts and flamingos in the snow. I mean, I heard y'all get freezing nights down here, maybe not a bunch of snow, but who doesn't love pink flamingos in the snow? Just saying. Also, being a metalsmith, I'm a member of Society of North American Goldsmiths, so it's SNAG. It's a bar. I thought that was funny. If you ever go through South Dakota, there's the Spam Museum there, and you can see all the steps that it takes to make a Spam can and the pull tab. And they use about 40 automated dies and presses, which I think is pretty amazing. And the Spam can has evolved a lot. So, just so y'all know. But to give you, I guess, a little bit of my pedigree, James Myers was my first metals instructor, and he was the one that kind of hooked me. So this is some of his work. It's very organic, and you'll see later on that I draw a lot of inspiration from flowers and natural organic materials. Is everything looking okay up there? Susie Ganch was also one of my professors, and her work, it's very active, it's also very formal, there's a lot of tension, but pieces like this, they're large and sculptural, but I feel like if you downsize them, they work great on the body as jewelry. So Susie also kind of directs the Radical Jewelry Makeover, which is something I don't know if many of you have heard about or had a lot of experiences with, but this is just kind of a pop-up of the website page if you're interested in looking that up. She's doing a lot of great things and being aware of the global community and how every action has a reaction. So another artist that I was looking at while I was in undergraduate school was Lissa Hunter for her surface decorations and her line quality, the weaving, colors. I think this piece is just really beautiful, the subtle change. And then when I went to graduate school, I was really fortunate to study abroad for a few weeks in the summer, and I saw the work that is our history. And I think it's great that y'all are so close to Dallas. The museum there that I got to go to yesterday has a beautiful collection of silver pieces. Oh my gosh, it's so nice. And it's just, this is your history, and to be able to see the pieces that are in the books in person, it's very powerful. And while I was over there studying, I got to see these pieces, and it made such a huge impression on me. These are all reliquary pieces, so they house an artifact or something from a saint. And this is St. Ursula. If you look around the back of her head, there's a little trap door that opens up. I think it had like a fragment of bone, possibly her skull. It's kind of crazy, but really beautiful, just so ornate. And so when I came back, I was also looking at the architect Paolo Soleri, who the line quality within his work, I think is just very intense, repetitive lines, and he's designing these very futuristic cities that everything's kind of subdivided, and you've got the living and the neighborhoods and the commercials and the industry part. And I'm not saying I would want to live in one of these cities because I really don't like people that much. But I like you guys. But they're just the drawings that he did of these is just absolutely beautiful. They're very much like a cell structure. And so I was looking at those. I was able to study with Bob Ebbendorf. And then when I came back from Italy, the first piece I did was a 3-part container that didn't house anything tangible. It was a reliquary from my memories and my experiences that I had while I was there. So very much inspired by the Italian architecture, the domes, everything, just very ornate. And Linda Darty was the professor that took me there. So this is some of her work. It's very, very much based on flowers. And then continuing with the idea of compartments and containers, but moving away from directly referencing the reliquary form, I began to make multiple compartment containers that were a little more personal. This piece and the next piece are very much based on relationships and the give and the pull. And with this one, the female figure wraps all the way around, and it's kind of gender roles within relationships, and how do you work those out, and how do you figure out who's going to take out the trash, who's going to clean out the kitty litter. It's all these things. But with this one, the female figure, it's very much derivative of Venus on the half shell. She has a downward kind of turned away gaze, so she's not meeting you directly on. She's not a powerful female. So you can take her off the shelf, you can take the ends off, you can unscrew the domes, you can put them back together, and you can put her back on the shelf when you're done and walk away. So that relationship didn't work out. But I was also able to study with Misuk Her. It's okay. And these are plants that she's picked from her garden and then done castings of, and she's just filled an entire frame of them. And they're absolutely beautiful, and they're very subtle, very delicate. And within these frames, there was always one that was removable, so you could take it off the wall and put it onto the body. And I really appreciate, art hangs on the wall, you don't touch it, it's behind glass, but this you interact with. This is another one of her pieces. And then going back to the work, that was a nice commercial break, we're going to go back to the work. This is the klepto belt buckle. We all have had those thoughts. Everyone has had, well, I could just, no. But this belt buckle is there for you just in case. And the back of it, there's the little pink elephant, Dumbo, pink elephant's on parade, Dumbo gets drunk, childhood's over. Pink elephant on the belt buckle, childhood's over. So you've got the little hidden compartment on the back, you have the sliding drawer on top, so you can stash things in there. And if something's rattling around, it's okay because the pearls will also make a noise as you move and walk around wearing the belt buckle, so no one can really call you on it. It's really great to have siblings that love you to death. Yeah, I was so happy my brother was playing with me. We were having bonding time. But he's a farrier, so all the horseshoe nails in my work come from him. And there's a lot of tension in sibling relationships. And what do you do when you're having a hard time having a conversation? Maybe you'll have a drink. Well, if that doesn't work, both of these cups have little hidden compartments underneath of them, so you can have something else. But my cup is taller, and it has a diamond on the rim, so I feel like I win. Then I was introduced to Gary Nofke, who is a Georgia-based metalsmith, and I really love the way that he approached his work. He just did it, He made these beautiful pieces. This is a golden cup. He has a sterling silver dog bowl that his dog eats out of every day. And the surface on this was just so ornate, and just everything was covered. Every little bit. And so then we're going to go back to Solari, and this is another one of his forms. It's like a Gary Nofke cup. Yeah, maybe not. For me. This is someone else who inspired me a lot. He gave me a lot of technical capabilities. So Tim was a great professor, and if I wanted to do anything, I go to him, he could show me the steps. And I just want to show you a couple of his pieces. Beautiful lines, very subtle. And then constantly seeing new work and being inspired. It doesn't necessarily filter in right when you see that work or right when you meet that person. Sometimes it takes a while. And I continue making pieces that were dealing with containment. And this piece was the first one where I actually had something tangible to contain. The magic red dust is pink ivory sawdust that was given to me by a friend who graduated a year ahead of me. So, you know, what do you do when your friends leave town and you miss them? I make artwork about it. Maybe you don't. But this piece, it's a 3-compartment. The bottom that is right there, it unlocks, and you've got the 3rd compartment there. Going back to my family, my mom was my first art teacher. You know, she taught me how to change a tire, how to sew a dress, all these things. Amazing woman, very inspiring. And so this piece is for her and about her. And all my conversations with her, I learned that for parents, one of the most difficult things is watching your kids grow up and go out into the world and not being able to really help or protect them when their emotions are in turmoil. And so this piece is very much a protector. The dome locks on, and when you unlock it, you can take the ring out, and it has a band of her hair that's woven around it, and the gold wraps around that to protect the hair. So, Helen Karnak is an English artist who works mainly with enamels, but her line marking is just, or mark making, is really just wonderful to me. The constant repetition. You guys are so excited. You just can't contain yourselves. So I just want to show you a little bit of her work. And then at the end of the commercial break, we'll go back to our regularly scheduled program. This is my grandfather who, you know, you always hear these great stories about your family members, and some of them are real and some of them are a little fudged after a couple of years. You know, things start to get distorted. So I took the stories that I knew from my own experiences with him and the stories that were told over and over again and made this piece. The cufflinks in it, he gave me when I was a kid, and they're so tacky. I mean, they're really tacky. I realize that. But he told me that's how he got all the girls to go on dates with him. So if you have really pretty cufflinks, the girls will go on dates with you. When he passed away, my grandmother sent me his teeth. And so that's his tooth, and you can unscrew it, put it into the base of the piece. The T-frame with the cufflinks rests on top, and then the band of the ring fits into the attic, which is hinged. So you can pop the roof off. And it's got the cadet's prayers transferred onto the mica, and it's very much like his workshop, the roof that my dad had to put on before he was allowed to marry my mom. I think that's a great story. I like it. And then the final piece I made while I was in graduate school was very much for me. Using the horseshoe nails for my brother, the arch, referencing Italian architecture, and I really needed a martini shaker. So, but when I left graduate school, I was very fortunate to get a year-long residency at Aramont School of Arts and Crafts in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And if you guys have any questions about things I'm talking about, please don't hesitate to shout out and ask. I should mention that earlier, but you know, or find me later. But for the residency, you know, there's perks and requirements. There's always a give in the trade, but Aramont was a really great experience for me. I went from a studio of 12 to being alone in the studio, and that was a really severe change. And when you're leaving school, you know, you want to be thinking about, do you need to be in a studio environment where you're surrounded by other people, or do you like being alone when you're making? So, you know, this kind of tells you a little bit about that. But also during that time, I had just finished making all these big pieces and putting a lot of silver into my work. And I get there and I go, oh, what am I doing? What am I making? Oh, so for the first month, all I did was make postcards. It allowed me to get my ideas down, to just be making marks, to be making work, and it allowed me to keep in touch with friends that we were now all scattered. So when I did go back to making, still pieces that were very much about my family and my friends, just on a smaller scale, because when you leave school, you don't have those delicious student loans coming in. Silver's expensive. So things became a little bit smaller. It was also during this time that I went back to a body of work using steel wire to draw. So I would just take the steel wire, bend it around, and make these little doodles. And it was something that I had never really given much credit to beforehand. It was a body of work that I just did kind of on the side, like the postcards. You know, you just draw, you doodle. It's not what I make. But I realized that it feeds into everything. You know, the wire drawings feed into my postcard lines. Those feed into doing sgraffito marks and lines on enameled vessels. So. All right. So, what's sgraffito? Sgraffito is, well, with an enameling, it's when you have a layer of enamel, and then you go back with the tool and you scratch through that to make your marks. So all the lines that you see on these pieces are the bare metal coming through the enamel. We'll be doing more of this tomorrow in the workshop. Yeah! So after a year at Aramont and living with 3 other artists, I went for a 3-month residency at Picosin Arts where I was the only person there. And that was, again, another adjustment. Because even though I had been previously living with artists, they were all in different mediums, which is a great experience. So at Picosin, you know, you work 20 hours a week. You really kind of learn the ins and outs of what it takes to make a nonprofit work, especially a small one that's getting going. And you know, you live in the shotgun apartment, and you have access to the studio facilities. They have clay and metals, and they just have 2 new studios that went up. So that was a good time for me to learn how to be completely independent. But after that, I went for a month-long residency in Wyoming, right outside of Sheridan at Gentile, which you're only there for a month, so it really kind of limits what you're able to take with you. And during that time, I packed pliers and steel wire and limited myself to really focusing on that body of work. And for me, my natural environment is very important. It might not be the case for some of you, but I really have a connection with where I am. So being able to be in such a beautiful place was very inspiring. And the wire forms that I started making were, for me, very large. You know, I've gone from this size to about 12 to 15 inches, and on the wall. So just learning to play with the material. And then when I returned home for the winter and was in my studio alone, I continued playing with steel wire, was able to incorporate the enamels into it, started putting the forms onto the body. And then I also continued in the same vein of making pieces that were very much about my family. The next summer, I got to go to Haystack Mountain School of Craft, which is in Deer Isle, Maine. No one gets it. But I was an employee of Haystack for the past 2 summers, and it was a really great experience for me. And this is just the same little, tell you a little bit about Haystack. There are some very fierce competitive evening volleyball games. But while I was there, I got to take a lot of trash runs, and it was part of my job. But I got to see a lot of beautiful things, and the cardboard recycling center is pretty beautiful. I mean, look at those lines. Look at the repetitive pattern and the cardboard, the earthy tones, and you get the splash of color. I mean, come on, it's really beautiful. You just break it down to bare lines. But my direct supervisor was Ellen Weisky, who is also a metalsmith, and she works in steel wire. So I felt very fortunate to not only be working at such an amazing place, but to be working for such an amazing person. She works mainly in steel wire and tin. So she's this constant tinkerer and constantly playing and discovering new things within her studio and what she wants to be making. And with this piece, she gave herself the assignment of how to take a pegboard and make it not look like a pegboard, which I think that's pretty cool. I mean, you know, you never get too old to give yourself assignments. And it's always leads to different things, problem solving. Someone else that I got to meet while I was there was Anna Hepler. This is one of her prints, and she came to teach a mixed media class. And so everyone breathe in, and breathe out. And breathe in, you're not breathing in, but you can breathe out, and then breathe in. And so Anna's class, while she was there for the 2 weeks, they did large installation inflatable pieces. And you come around the corner and it was this giant, like the Ghostbusters. Someone help me out. Yes! But Anna is also an artist that works in steel wire. So, both her and Ellen, they take the materials that they want and they need, and they're able to just transform them into the pieces that they have envisioned in their mind. And I really love that. And also, constantly being on the road, I've had to really downsize my studio so that I can pack it into a little 2-door Honda Civic and go. And I think that that's something that's really helped me problem solve. This is the workspace I had while I was at Haystack. This is some of the scenery that I got to see. And it's really beautiful. The light there is absolutely amazing. But while I was there, I was referencing images that I had taken previously and was continuing to take while I was there to create a body of work for a show in South Dakota, which is, where the Spam Museum is. So I was looking at all these flowers. I was doing drawings. These are rose hips, just in case you were wondering. Looking at the details, the tiny lines. You guys are so excited. And then also looking at the natural environment that was around me at Haystack. It's right on the shore, or on the coast, I guess I should say. It's lots of boulders, and this is the seaweed, and I feel like if you just squint a little bit, it becomes a tree line with white pebbles. The rock formations there are really gorgeous, and even the lobster buoys that get washed up on the shore, after the wear and tear of life, they're really beautiful also. The piers, the granite is a huge industry in that area. So looking at the rocks, the spruce trees, the carnage of the squirrels, they are vicious. These funny little guys that are just hanging out, who does their hair? The decks, they're beautiful. It's this monotone gray and the lines and the patterns. It's all there. The shingles on the side of the building, these natural wizard-like enchanted scenes, magical sparkly rocks. This is one of my favorite places. It's called Jasper Beach, and the water naturally forms the rocks so that it has a scalloped edge, which I think is pretty amazing. And it's just, when you're in an environment and you really start to notice all the little details that exist without any tampering of mankind, it's really amazing what is already there. I mean, the colors, the lines, you can't make this up. And so for an entire summer, I would get up at 6 a.m. before my workday started, and I would be at my bench, and I'd be making all these little wire forms and getting them ready to go off for a show. And that's what I did. I'd try to rush back in between the volleyball games and do a little bit more. But I was very much inspired by the organic forms, using weaving. I was gifted this book, which is really great. I don't know if any of you have looked at it or read it, but it is just black and white photographs up close of plant forms. And if any of you are interested in doing blacksmithing, I mean, you really can't find anything that's more inspirational. I'm sure you could, but for me, I'm also very interested in woven forms. These are fishing nets that have been converted into light forms. But repeat patterns, beautiful line quality. I say that about just about everything I like. It's a theme. And then this past spring, I was able to go for a medical replacement and teach at Indiana University with Nicole Jacquard. And she's another person who is always incorporating new materials and always researching, never really satisfied with the status quo, and so it's always, going for more. And learning new materials. With this piece, if you push the tab down, there's an LED light that lights up the house. So also got to go on a couple of field trips while we were there. The stitch work, the costumes that were in the theater, really cool, beautiful details. And inspired by natural forms, by animals, by flowers. Still looking at flowers, even on the great wallpaper in the bathroom to the place that I was renting. I mean, that's pretty great. Trumpets, looking all around, examining the details, just really seeing what's there. And then I took this time to go a little bit larger with the forms. These are all about 36 inches long, but just taking these wire forms, and they became kind of my traveling garden. Because when you move every 4 months, you literally can't put down roots. That was a joke. I'm funny, but so these forms became my garden, my way to really make a place my home. I told you growing up I was always in the garden. It's very much a part of my family, who I am, and these pieces kind of replace that. And then also while I was there, I got to return to doing some of the liquid enamel on the raised vessels, and this is how I lay things out. Because when you're working with metal, it's great. You can draw all over it. You can heat it up, erase it. And then back to haystack for another round. Wire working, crazy cauliflower. This is, when we went to a corn maze recently, which if any of you have not gone, you really should try going to a corn maze. They're so great. Oh my gosh. But with this piece, it's a beautiful monotone, the lines, and then it's broken up by all these little pumpkin butts. I mean, this is a recent workshop that was held at Haystack, and it's very much about quilting and patchwork, combining, overlaying, and you don't really have the time to think. You're just overlapping all these colors and putting things together and running it through the sewing machine, and hopefully not hitting your fingers. And it's not at all the medium that I work in, but it was really great for me to step out of that and to participate in this, which, as you go, you might not always be able to be working in the medium that you're in right now, and so it's good to have these, like postcards. And so with that, I started looking more at textiles, and I think this is a beautiful textile. It also has a really beautiful quote that goes with it. My grandfather always said that living is like licking honey off of a thorn, which it's very true. I mean, you're gonna love it, but it's gonna be kind of painful. And, you really have to love what you're making more than food. So, I mean, it's very true. Still looking at my natural environment, there's so many different kinds of mosses in Maine. Oh my gosh. And each one has its own personality. I mean, there's Fred, and there's Ralph, and there's Lolita, and then there's Candy. Yeah. They all have their own unique texture, patterning, line work within them. The causeway that you go across every day, it's divided. You've got the granite rocks, the rough side, the smooth side when the wind's coming in. And it's, it's life. You're gonna have the rough side and the smooth side. It'll be okay though, you just try to make it down the center.
Whose hood ornament is that?
That is the lobster hood ornament on the Haystack truck. I got a lot of compliments driving that around. I wish it was mine. Of course here, I have to get some longhorns. The rock formations that are found around that area are really pretty amazing. And you have these rocks that have billowed up, molten in lava through the surface. And then when they cool, it's all these lines. Once again, all the lines. You guys doing okay? You're loving these lines, I can tell. So, and this is just, being constantly surrounded by the water. I know that's something y'all don't have a lot of here, so I'm sorry to include this a little bit. But it is this beautiful, repetitive, constantly changing pattern within it. The sound, the motion. It's all there. And then I'm going to show you a couple of websites that I constantly look to because I'm always moving around. Last year I lived in 4 different states. And then this spring I'm going to be moving to Italy to teach metals over there through East Carolina. But it's really important for me, and I feel for people that are within the field, to constantly be looking and be researching different opportunities and to be aware of what's going on. I don't know how many of you know about Craft House. It's kind of like Facebook for makers. But you can research opportunities through this. It has the calls for workshops, calls for exhibitions, their job postings. And maybe you're researching and you're finding things that don't necessarily suit you, but maybe they're perfect for your friend. Tell your friend about them. And maybe they'll find something that's perfect for you and they'll tell you about it. And it's friends. It's a good community. We're all makers. We're all here together. With College Art Association, the opportunities on this sidebar, if you just view all opportunities, it's endless. And they're all over the country, sometimes all over the world. Alliance Artist Communities, another one that really talks about residencies, if any of y'all are interested in that. I'm also happy to talk to any of you one-on-one, or we can do questions at the end. And then this is Washington Art. And this is a website that if you're looking to be in a specific region, it's really great because it divides the residencies by region, by country, by state. And so you can do research that way. And when I started organizing all this for myself and trying to plan out, how I was going to exit graduate school and have something lined up, I just made a whole calendar. And I started putting residencies. Yeah, this is. I learned about the Snap and Grab app on my computer. I was really excited about that, in case you couldn't tell. But this way I can go to this and I can say, okay, what's on, let's say it's October. It is. And I'm like, I need to start applying to things for next spring, and things are going to be due in November. So I go to the November folder and I've got all these residency applications that I've pulled already, and that they're there waiting, and I know that they're going to be due in November. So you kind of do the homework ahead of time and you get everything lined up, and it makes it a lot easier to just organize. So, and I'm very sorry, but I went much faster than I originally planned. So thank you very much. Do y'all have any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We're going to leave the chicken up there. Questions about any residencies or? Yes?
What do you think has most influenced your work out of everyone?
Oh, good call. Let's see, most influenced my work. I mean, it might be sappy to say my mom, but I would put her up there with, my professors during graduate school. Tim really influenced the work that I was making, and so did Linda. So, could I do a trifecta? 3 of them? Do I have to pick one? Okay. Yes?
You use a lot of compartments and hiding motifs in the work. Can you talk about why?
Oh, we all have hidden secrets. No, I mean, it really has been a lifelong fascination. I mean, the discovery of a hidden compartment within something. And also it's, you make this work and it's beautiful and you send it out into the world and you want people to spend time with it. And incorporating a hidden compartment, I guess for me, it's kind of like, it's a reward for the people that do spend enough time with the piece to really get to know it. So, yeah.
Have you ever experimented with any digital or computer forms of art?
I just learned the snap grab thing.
All right.
I mean, that's about as no, but no, sorry. Yeah.
We didn't get to see any of your commission pieces, which I personally am a big, huge fan of, because when I looked at it, I was like, wow, these are so, awesome. And I wondered, like, what was it said here that you collaborated with both the person that commissioned you and your own ideas, and I was just interested in how you blended those both parties together in order to create those engagement rings or birthday rings or the other jewelries that you made.
Well, with a lot of the engagement rings.
How about I'll bring up the commission while you're talking.
Oh, okay.
How about that?
Okay. Oh, geez.
Oh, geez, you just keep talking.
I'm gonna do some jump rope. With the commission pieces, you're working with someone else, and you have to make sure that you're fulfilling their desires and their ideas. And one of the things that I learned in doing commission pieces is that you need to get everything down in writing, and that before you start carving into the metal or really working it, you need to make sure that they understand your vision of what the piece is and you understand their vision. And there are some.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Keep going.
There are some things that technically I can't do. I'm not going to be able to flush set diamonds all over a ring. And so when people come to me, it's generally, they've seen my work a little bit and they like aspects. And so they can pull little pieces or components out, and then they tell me what they really want the ring to be about. So it's a lot of conversations, but it's making sure that you're both very clear on, like, as the maker, like what I am able to do for them, and as the person that's commissioning the piece, like what they really want. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Kind of? Okay. And
with all these residencies and everything you're doing and traveling like every 3 or 4 months, how do you cope, or do you struggle at all with not having like a place to call home, and like with all of this traveling that you do in the last few years?
yeah, it's a struggle. I mean, there are times where I would really love to have a home base, but at the same time, I feel so fortunate that I've met so many wonderful people in my travels, and this might sound sappy, but I feel like I have homes all across the country because I have so many really great, wonderful, dear friends. And I'm also very lucky that my parents have a large barn in which I can put lots of things in storage. So, yes?
I was going to ask, when did you get into metalsmithing, and what did you do before metalsmithing?
I got into metalsmithing while I was an undergrad at VCU, and before that I went there thinking I was going to go into clay, and then I took my first metals class, and I was like, oh, this is great, I can just beat the hell out of this. It's perfect. You go home so happy.
But you didn't have any idea that you were going to be into metals until you started to get to play with it?
No. And it was about the same time that my brother became a farrier. So, yeah.
If you had to choose your favorite technique, like raising, enamel, or marking, what would it be?
Ooh. I mean, it's kind of like, yeah. So how do you just pick this? I really love raising, but I love combining it with other techniques. I mean, I love enameling. I could enamel every day for the rest of my life.
Could you explain the specifics for people that haven't done it?
Oh, okay. Raising and forming is where you take a flat sheet of metal, and generally you're cutting it into a disc, so you have a round flat sheet of metal, and you have a steel stake that's in a vise, and you're forming it. So you're hitting it on this side, and you're compressing the negative space until you take the flat sheet, and working in circles, you slowly raise it up into a form, and you change out the stakes, because you're working against the steel, and you're using it to help you form the metal. So I like hammering things.
And then
So-
enameling, just in case they're not familiar.
Okay. Enameling is the process of applying powdered or liquid glass to the surface of metal, heating it in the kiln until about 1500 degrees, and it fuses to the surface. And that was, oh yeah, look at those commission pieces. Those were the pieces that you saw that were white and had the drawings on them. Those were all raised forms that had been dipped in liquid enamel. So, other questions? Yeah.
How do artist residencies work? Do they pay you for like
There are a bunch of different type of residencies, and every single one is different. The ones that I've been fortunate enough to go to all paid me. I'm not someone that, I do not have a bankroll. I can't go to a residency where I'm required to pay to be there. So when I'm looking at residencies, I'm looking for places that either pay me a stipend or allow me to live for free. And that's something that if you get into researching them, there are certain residencies that require that you pay. And don't let that deter you, because there's generally scholarships or some sort of funding that's available if you can't pay.
And if you're interested in that, I mean, you guys can get started now. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
really amazing art camps where you go there for the summer, and there's not a lot of people that can do like what Jennifer does, is like uproot, go somewhere for months at a time. And so it's even, I know there's lots of undergrads that'll go to these different sort of art camps around the country and spend the summer there teaching art, and that becomes kind of a basis of a resume for like
Yeah.
future residencies.
I mean, there's lots of great summer opportunities. Yeah.
In your teaching in the residencies, you are all different ages. Can you talk about like your experience learning as an educator?
Oh gosh. I mean, I don't think you ever stop learning when you're teaching, because, you know, every class that you have is just a whole new set of rules. It's a whole new ballpark. And I mean, there are benefits for me personally to teaching college level versus teaching community arts classes. I enjoy working with college level students, but you know, also when you're working with the younger students, you're just getting them going, and they're really fresh and excited, and so that's a bit of a rush. But it's, I mean, what I learned the most is just constantly changing. So, I don't know if I can. Anyone else? Questions? Yeah.
How do you get all of your materials? I remember you saying that it started to get more expensive, so you had to do smaller pieces and things.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get them? And do they come in like big sheets, or I mean, what is it like the metal pieces and stuff?
When I order, like for this ring would be fabricated out of sterling silver, and you can order silver in sheet forms. And then depending upon how thick the sheet is and the size of it, you can order 6x6 sheets. And the metal is measured in gauges, so 20 gauge, 18 gauges thicker, 16 gauges even more thick. And then there are a couple of suppliers around the country. There's Rio Grande, there's Metalliferous, there's Hoover and Strong. So, you know, if you want to start ordering materials, you can kind of peruse and see, because there are certain places that will give you, you know, it just depends on what you're looking for as to where you should be purchasing it. So, questions? Yes, sir.
When you're working with your compartments and containment, do you work from the outside in or inside out?
Oh, that's a good question.
What leads you when you begin that process?
Normally, I'll start working from the outside and seeing the shape as a whole and finished. And then once I have an idea of how I want it to look in the round completed, I'll start breaking down the components. And, you know, it's one of those things that when I'm working on those, I'll write out every single step I have to do. Because once you get something soldered down, to go back and rip it off is really kind of, it can be detrimental to the piece, but it's also just another 10 hours of time that you don't necessarily have sometimes. So I would say I generally get an overall view of the piece and then start breaking it down. You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else?
Before we wrap it up, I wanted to be sure to invite everyone to your demo.
Yeah.
So, it's tomorrow at 12:30 down in the undergraduate metal studio, which is on like the north entrance of the art building in room 116. So at about 12:30, you guys, she'll be doing a variety of different enameling techniques. So if you're interested in how that works and just want to kind of see it actually happening, you'll be doing that for a couple hours. And
Yep. It'll be
we
fun.
can't fit everybody, but I'm sure there's just a couple people that'll be interested to come
I hope.
online.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be lots of fun. We'll break a bunch of rules. So, but thank you.